The consequence program had changed 47 juveniles across 11 species. It had closed 3 War Crèche facilities. It had rewritten galactic policy on juvenile placement. And now the High Council wanted to shut it down. Not because it failed, because it worked too well, and the wrong people noticed. General Varek of the Shreth War Crèche Division did not attend the program review quietly. He arrived with documentation, 47 case files annotated in red, a legal team of 9, and a prepared statement that used the word dangerous 11 times in the opening paragraph. Lena read the statement in Ulan's office while it was still warm from the printer. He's arguing the program destabilizes species-specific development frameworks, Ulan said carefully. He's arguing it closes creches, Lena replied. Ulan said nothing. The crèche division was 300 years old, 17 facilities, thousands of juveniles processed annually across 6 species. It was funded, staffed, politically connected, and deeply threatened by 47 successful alternative placements and a waiting list of 43 more. Varek's statement concluded with a formal motion, program suspension pending full council review, immediate halt to new placements, existing cases returned to certified facilities. Lena set the document down. "When is the review?" she asked. 8 days, Ulan said. Full council session. Varek presents his case, you respond. Lena looked at the window. 8 days. 47 juveniles currently in placement, 43 on the waiting list, 3 crèche facilities that had already begun reform based on program methodology. "I won't be the one responding," she said quietly. Frown. Then who? Lena was already walking toward the door. She found them in the program workspace. Carr was reviewing a placement file, a Drevak juvenile 3 weeks into stabilization, showing consistent progress. He'd been tracking the case personally since Rune's first contact session. Veshka was building something, not dismantling, building, a structured behavioral assessment tool she designed herself based on 6 months of observation data. She hadn't told anyone. Lena had found it 3 days ago and hadn't mentioned it either, waiting to see if Veshka would. Rune was writing. Lena stopped at the doorway. "The program is under review," she said. "General Varek is moving to shut it down. Full council session in 8 days. All 3 went still. "What happens to the current placements?" Carr asked. "Return to crèche facilities if the motion passes." Silence. Rune set down his writing. "The Drevak juvenile," he said. 11 weeks in isolation before we reached him. If he goes back— "I know," Lena said. "The Ferrith siblings, 6 months separated. First stable placement in 2 years. "I know." Carr looked at her directly. "What do you need?" Lena crossed the room and sat down. "Varek will argue the program is experimental, unproven, that it undermines established methodology." She paused. "He'll be speaking to 400 council delegates who mostly agree with him. And you need us to change their minds," Rune said. "No," Lena said. "I need you to tell them the truth, what you were, what you chose, what the others chose." She looked at all 3. "I can explain the methodology, but I can't explain what it feels like to be the juvenile in that room." A long silence. Then Carr said, "When do we start preparing?" General Varek presented for 40 minutes. He was precise, authoritative, and persuasive. 300 years of institutional history, documented outcomes, species-specific success metrics, comparative studies showing crèche graduates outperforming in military assessments, endurance rankings, threat response scores. He showed footage of crèche graduates performing at elite levels. He showed case files of program placements that had taken longer than projected. He used words like unstructured, unvalidated, culturally presumptuous. He saved his strongest point for last. "The consequence program," he said, "is built on human behavioral philosophy, a single species, ranked 842nd, applied universally across 11 species with fundamentally different neurological, cultural, and instinctual frameworks." He let that sit. "We do not allow Veth medical practice to be applied to Shreth patients without validation. We do not allow Profi architectural standards to govern Varkai construction. We require species-specific expertise in every field." He looked at the council. "Why," he said, "are we allowing a human babysitter to redesign galactic juvenile development policy?" The chamber murmured. Lena sat in the response seat and kept her expression steady. Beside her, she felt Carr go very still, not tense, not aggressive. the stillness she'd watched him develop over 8 months, the one that came before he chose his words carefully. She didn't look at him, but she knew what it meant. He was ready. The council chair turned to the program response seat. Lena stood. "I'll be presenting alongside my colleagues," she said. "Kar, Veshka, and Rune Telmar, current program associates and former placements." Varek's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. Kar walked to the presentation position. He stood straight, not Varkai dominance display, something quieter, the posture of someone who had chosen how to stand. 9 caretakers, he said. That is how many adults could not manage 3 Varkai cubs in 6 weeks. Trained professionals, experienced handlers. The chamber was silent. I was the dominant cub. I made sure they couldn't. He paused. Not because I was strong, because no one had ever given me a reason to choose differently. He looked at Varek directly. The general showed you crèche graduates performing at elite levels. I don't doubt those numbers. A pause. I want to ask about the ones who didn't graduate, the ones removed for inability to adapt, the ones who entered facilities at 4 cycles and emerged unable to function outside combat frameworks. Varek's jaw tightened. Kar survived a dominance test at 4 cycles old. I remember every part of it. I remember what it taught me. He let that sit. It taught me that strength was the only currency, that yielding meant dying, that trust was a weakness. He looked at the council. Lena Carter taught me that strength without control is noise, that yielding can be a choice, not a defeat, that trust is how you build something worth protecting. A pause. General Varek is correct that this program uses human philosophy. He is incorrect that this is a problem. Kar held the chamber's silence. Humans ranked last, and somehow they taught a Varkai predator cub that words work better than claws. He tilted his head slightly. Perhaps that is exactly why it works. Veshka went next. She placed her behavioral assessment tool on the display, the one she'd built herself, quietly, over 6 months. General Varek argued the program is unstructured, she said. I built this in my own time. No instruction, no template, from observation alone. She walked the council through it, a structured framework for identifying the root cause of juvenile behavioral challenges, categorized by species-specific instinct patterns, with documented outcome correlations across all 47 placements. 3 council research delegates leaned forward. This is original methodology, one said quietly. Yes, Veshka replied. The program didn't give me this. It gave me the tools to build it myself. She looked at Varek. That is the difference between training and education. Rune was last. He didn't use displays, didn't bring documents. He stood quietly for a moment, the way he'd learned to stand in a room with a frightened Drevak juvenile. Low energy, open posture, no performance. I want to talk about the 11 weeks, he said. The chamber waited. The Drevak juvenile in case 31, 11 weeks in isolation before we reached him. 3 handlers injured, not by aggression, but by fear response. His own, triggered by being repeatedly cornered by people trying to help him. Silence. I sat on the floor of his room for 4 minutes before he took 1 step toward me. Not because I'm exceptional, because Lena Carter once sat on a floor and waited for me to clean up a mess I'd made deliberately. She looked at the council. She didn't corner me. She gave me space to choose. A pause. I gave him the same space, because I knew what it felt like to need it. The chamber was completely still. You cannot learn that in a crèche, Rune said simply. You can only learn it from someone who already did. Varek stood for rebuttal. To his credit, he adapted. He didn't attack the cubs directly. That would have lost him the chamber immediately. Instead, he pivoted to process, scalability, institutional reliability. 3 individuals, he said. 1 human, 3 Varkai cubs, 47 cases in 8 months. He spread his hands. The crèche division processes thousands annually. How does this program scale? How do you train more humans to do what Lena Carter does? How do you replicate 3 specific individuals across a galaxy of need? It was a good argument. Lena felt several delegates nodding. She stood slowly. May I respond? The chair nodded. General Varek is asking the right question. Scalability. How do we grow beyond 3 people? She gestured to Kar, Veshka, and Rune. We already have. These three have directly worked with juveniles from 8 species. Veshka's assessment framework has been requested by 4 independent research institutions this month. She paused. The program doesn't scale by training more humans. It scales by doing exactly what it did here, giving individuals the tools to teach others. She looked at Varek. General, how many crèche graduates have gone on to reform juvenile placement methodology? Silence. How many have designed original behavioral frameworks? How many have chosen, independently, to sit on a floor with a frightened juvenile from a different species and wait because they understood what waiting means? She let that sit. The program scales, she said quietly, because it teaches people to think, and people who learn to think teach others. Varek said nothing. The chamber murmured. The council deliberated for 2 hours. Lena sat outside with the 3 cubs in a station corridor, the same kind of corridor where Rune had once chosen restraint over reaction when a visiting juvenile shoved him. Nobody spoke much. Kar read, Veshka sketched assessment modifications on a datapad, Rune watched station traffic with calm, curious eyes. Lena looked at all 3 of them. 8 months ago, they had paced like caged storms behind a locked door. Now they sat in a public corridor outside a high council session that would determine the future of 47 juveniles, and they were steady. Not because nothing was at stake, because they had learned that panic was a choice. The doors opened. Ulan walked out first. His expression was carefully neutral, the expression of someone delivering news they hadn't expected to deliver. The motion to suspend failed, he said, 273 to 139. Lena exhaled slowly. Kar closed his book. And Varek's crèche division? Veshka asked. Ulan paused. Mandatory review, independent oversight, required to implement consequence-based assessment frameworks across all facilities within 18 months. Silence. Rune turned to Lena. You knew this would happen. I hoped, she said. You planned, he said. She looked at him. I gave you the tools, she said. You built the plan. Rex found them there 10 minutes later, still in the corridor, no celebration, no display. Just 3 Varkai cubs and a human, sitting quietly in the aftermath of changing galactic policy. He stood before Lena. You let them carry it, he said. Yes. Why? Lena glanced at the cubs. Kar reading again, Veshka already back on her datapad, Rune watching the corridor with steady eyes. Because they were ready, she said, and the only way to prove it was to step back and let them prove it themselves. Rex was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lowered his head. Not a Varkai dominance gesture, something older, rarer. Respect. Across the galaxy, 47 juveniles stayed in their placements. 43 more joined the waiting list the following morning. And in a corridor outside the High Council chamber, a program that had started with 1 human and 3 impossible cubs became something the galaxy could no longer imagine being without.